So what is projectile motion? Projectile motion is another type of motion, occurs only when the object is thrown and lands into the air. The object is launched at certain initial point to its final points of the displacement in the horizontal direction, following parabolic path with certain time and distance. When it reaches the maximum height, it begins to accelerate downward. Galileo Galilei was the first scientist who described projectile motion through the observation and experimentation, and was published in one of his books in 1590. The projectile motion uses formula to know how far the projectile reaches its maximum heights and range with respect to the time taken into the whole travel of the projectile. So number one, what are the components of projectile motion? Number two, what does the formula use in finding the initial horizontal component of the projectile motion? And number three, why is the acceleration of projectile in horizontal motion constant from its initial point to final point? To understand projectile motion completely, we need to know their components along the x and y axis. So x and y axis is the component. Two components, including velocity and acceleration. So the symbol of velocity is v, and displacement. So displacement is d, or this is called range. So, assuming that all forces like air resistance and frictions affecting the motion are negligible except gravity. Assuming that upward direction is positive. So positive. And downward direction is negative. So downward direction is negative. Then the gravity of the acceleration due to gravity is acceleration is equal to negative gravity equals negative 9.8 meter per second squared. Yung acceleration due to gravity, this is a constant value. So horizontal motion or component, horizontal. This is x-axis. Horizontal. Horizontal motion component of a projectile along vertical direction does not experience only acceleration on horizontal motion. So vertical, y-axis, the y-axis. Therefore, in mathematical equation is acceleration in along the horizontal motion is equal to 0. Why? Because assuming that the symbol of initial velocity is v sub I. Initial velocity. Angle and height. The symbol of angle is so. And the height of the projectile, height of the projectile or distance. Height of a projectile is given that we can calculate the components of velocity using the formula of Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theory. Let's say for example, the horizontal or initial velocity of v sub x and v sub y, the velocity along the vertical motion, velocity along the horizontal motion. So this one is the angle. So v sub x is equal to velocity cosine theta, or velocity along horizontal direction. And v sub x, velocity sine theta, for velocity along vertical direction. But if the angle is equal to 90, it means that the object in motion is revolved. So pag daw 90 degrees ang angle, ang motion daw nito is revolve. If velocity in y direction is 0. So the ang velocity daw pag nasa y direction is equal to 0. So the object in motion is in horizontal motion. So yung object daw ng motion ay nasa horizontal motion, horizontal direction. Next, since there is no gravity along horizontal direction, of the projectile motion. The velocity of the projectile in motion, or v sub x, along the horizontal motion is constant. Constant, hindi nagbabago. Ano po? Constant in the whole travel, and was equal to the initial launch of the projectile, or the initial velocity. Initial velocity, the symbol of initial velocity, v sub I. Initial velocity, v sub I, and final velocity, v sub f. So therefore, final velocity, initial velocity is equal to final velocity. Understand? Next. So if we launch a projectile from 0 time, pag daw yung time is equal to 0, then at time, the x component of its displacement from the launch point will be horizontal distance. Horizontal distance, horizontal. X, symbol of horizontal distance is x, is equal to dx, final velocity times time. So the symbol of time is t. So the horizontal distance is equal to v final velocity times time. How about in horizontal velocity? Horizontal velocity of v sub x is equal to v sub x times time. If vertical time or vertical distance is equal to y, or y is equal to velocity, initial velocity plus 1/2 times gravity time squared. How about vertical velocity? Vertical velocity is equal to final velocity plus initial velocity minus gravity times time. Okay. For example, What is the range or horizontal distance? What is the angle? Initial velocity. One is the angle. So one is the initial velocity. Ng x, initial velocity of horizontal direction, and initial velocity horizontal vertical, velocity. One is horizontal velocity, horizontal vertical velocity. What is the final velocity? And this one is the height of vertical motion or direction. So the velocity is equal to 0. The word velocity along x-axis. B sub x I is equal to initial velocity along x-axis. By is equal to velocity along y negative axis. B sub I, initial velocity along y axis. And G is acceleration due to gravity, which is 9.8 meter per second squared, and time is equal to time taken. Okay, thank you and good day.